Welcome to the Databricks Skill Builder series. We're glad you're here.
Databricks believes in democratizing the access to data. And in order to do that, we need to get data into the hands of as many people as possible, as intuitively and easily as possible. Over the next 4 or 5 minutes, I'm going to walk you through how to create a chat-like experience directly on top of your data and how to improve it. The concept that I'm going to be talking about is called a Genie Space. If you're in your Databricks workspace, over on the left, you'll see a spot where you can see existing Genie Spaces. But I'm going to begin with the creation process. So let's imagine that you're an analyst and you need to ask a question of your data. Often, this would mean opening it up in Excel or pulling it down as a flat file, doing some analysis yourself and seeing what you can find out. In order to have a similar experience, but without the need for the manual analysis, I'm going to start here in the top left with creating a table. When you click that button, you've got the option to add in a file, so I'm going to browse here and pull in some sample data. The sample data gets loaded in from a CSV that I had. This is just some fake sales data here. You say where you want it saved, so I would come in here, pick a name for it, and click Create Table. The table is then created in my environment, and I can see what that looks like by coming here to the catalog and browsing for it. Or in this case, I've already got it saved, and you can see how it came out. We get a picture of the overall data, some sample data, information about details and permissions, etc. From this page, though, I'm going to come across to Create Genie Space. Creating a Genie Space, you'll have to just pick a name for it. I'm going to call this Hob Sample, give a description. Decide what compute you want to run this. This is fine with me. And there down below, it's going to show you what data is being pulled in. In a case where you have multiple tables that you need to communicate with one another, typically you do something like an XLOOKUP or a VLOOKUP for those of you with an Excel background, you would just pull those tables in here by finding them and selecting them. I'm happy with just my one table, so I'm going to save this and create a Genie Space. From inside of here, you now are in your chat-like experience. Down below, I could ask questions. I could have it generate sample questions as well, and pass those questions back and forth. The table that I selected is over here, and I can open it up to see the columns inside, and I can go back to that table. Now you'll notice that underneath this, it says no comment available. This is something that I want to walk you through because it makes a tremendous difference as far as retrieving the right answers to your questions. I'm going to come back here to open in the Catalog Explorer. This brings me back to my table. Every table in Databricks has the ability to have some documentation built right in as a description. The same thing is true of columns where there's these comment fields here. So you can come in and Databricks will use a large language model to suggest a description of the table, which was generated here, and you can accept or edit that. Here I'm going to click accept. And you can also use AI to generate the comments down below for each column, after which you again one at a time either accept or reject these comments. I'm going to come over to a Genie room where I have already done some of this work. So I'm coming over to my Genie Spaces. I search for the one that I'm interested in. I'm in a sandbox, so I've got a lot available to me here. But here's a place with that same table where I have added in descriptions or comments. And now underneath each of these, you've got a quick description of what that column does. Okay, setup piece aside, let's look at what the experience is like. I am now in a chat experience directly on top of my CSV data. So I can come in and begin asking questions like, show me the number of orders by country. When you do this, that question gets passed across to a large language model to translate it into SQL code. The SQL code is sent to Databricks, which executes it and returns the result. In addition to the result, which I can see here, and I can sort, it's going to give you a description of what it's doing above and the ability to see the code that it ran down below. Once your result is returned, provided it's in a format that makes sense, you have a visualize button, and once you visualize it, it'll return it as a chart or graph. These can be refreshed with the click of a button, or you can edit your question if it didn't quite return the right results. I went on to say instead of just by country, I'm interested in Spain, so what product line is most popular in Spain? It went out, ran the code, found out which one was most popular by order count, and returned that to me. The next question I asked is how many orders were in that product line. I didn't specify the product line in this question, but because we're working with a large language model, it checked the previous inquiry that had been asked, knew that the product line was classic cars, and used that to populate the next result, which said the most popular product line in Spain had a total of 342 orders for classic cars. Same thing here. How does that compare to France? Without having to write any code or tell it what that is, it knew that it was Spain and classic cars, so it did a comparison to show me in France how many orders were for classic cars. You can have multiple conversations. I've got one here for geographic analysis. I have another one for sales quantity. I have a place for asking ad hoc questions where I can do whatever I want. Here's those visualize buttons that I talked about. As many conversations as you want to have. And again, should you need to refresh anything, you click the refresh button. Should you need to edit anything, you click the edit button. One more piece of functionality here that's useful as you're creating these Genie Spaces. Over on the left, you have this thing called instructions. A lot of times there's a fair bit of business jargon in any company. Now you can put those in as comments on individual columns to say, when someone says A, that means this column. Or when someone says A, B, or C, that means this column. You can also here create individual instructions to help the LLM make the right call. When I click Add Instruction, I can give it a name, and I can type in my instructions here. When someone asks for car, they mean column A, B, C. And I'm going to replace my typo. I can save this instruction, and you can have as many of these as you need over here. You can also, if you're familiar with SQL, pass in SQL code directly. These, over time, improve the accuracy of your Genie space, making it return answers more and more accurately as things go along. When you're happy with the final result, and you've got your chats, you can come up here to share, and share this with people who can then use the hard work that you've put in to do their own analysis and ask their own questions. In this video, we walked through what it looks like for an analyst to, starting from scratch, build a chatbot experience on top of your flat file data, starting just from what you have on your computer.